Hey Bookends! Welcome to this week's 10-minute book review. I'm 10. So August is made for anthologies. So we're going to be showcasing hopefully 2 anthologies a week. And we're going to be doing a different grading scale for them. So instead of 10 stars, it will be 5 stars. And yeah, the overall rating for the anthology itself will be based on the individual ratings for each story. So let's jump right into it. This week is very interesting actually, because we got one publisher house anthology, one big publisher house anthology, and then we also got with some big names in it, like with some really nice big names in. And then we got a indie anthology that was written by a high school, like just some English lit kids in a high school. So, sorry about sweating. Once again, hot where I am. African fan and me are working it out. Yeah, so I was really impressed with one of the anthologies, not so much with the other. Trying to keep stuff from falling, y'all. Okay. Starting off with the publisher house one. New Sons. So I was really excited about this one because it has some really big names in it. African-American names, like African-American writers. And so I was like, yes, we can do this. Even mentioned that's kind of like a tribute to Octavia Butler. And I love Octavia Butler. She is my hands down favorite author. It would have to be Octavia Butler, Jude Watson, and Brian Jacques or Jakes. But yes, anyway, off topic. So yes, New Sons is an anthology that showcases African-American or POC, more like POC, because there's some people in who aren't African American, but speculative fiction. So when I got this, I thought there'd be a lot of futuristic science fiction in it. What I found was there was a lot of alternative fiction and spiritism. So it wasn't what I was looking for. Also, a lot of the stories were like medium to low burn when it came to interest or engagement. They really didn't pull me in. There was only one story that I really liked, and I had to leave tabs in these 2 books because there's so many stories. The story that I liked was Come to Atropos by Stephen Barnes. So basically this story is about someone making a commercial for an island where people go to die. Whether they're terminally ill, they're old, or they just don't feel like living anymore. It's an island where the wealthy, or at least those who can afford it, would go to spend their final days. And as you read, it's kind of like an email from their owner, I guess, to the advertising department saying, try to hide the sickly looking natives or the storm damage. Highlight the beautiful sunsets. So it was interesting because you don't know what this island is all about until you get towards the end of the story. And it kind of makes me think about when they advertise for things like Barbados or the Bahamas or the Cayman Islands or Jamaica, and you see how beautiful it looks, you know, in the commercials and how they show you the resorts and things like that. But then when you go off of the resort, it's not so beautiful anymore, and you see that people are struggling, people are hungry, people are living in poverty. So I thought that was interesting. Overall though, this anthology got a 2 out of 5 stars. It was not that good. I can't say that I would personally recommend it. The cover is nice, and yeah, nice cover, but we won't be keeping it. It wasn't that great. The second anthology really actually ended up blowing me away, and I was not expecting that. This one is Minds Unmasked. This is the one that was written by the high school students. So, Minds Unmasked. So I wasn't really sure what the theme of this anthology was, aside from the fact that it was written by high school students. So maybe the theme of it is just youth, is written by young people. But it was really good. So just some of the stories, right, that I liked in it. there's a lot in here, so I can't go through all. So I'm just going to give you the names of the stories that I gave 5s and what they're about. So the first story, Lift Off, by Ben Kissinger, is a story about a man who built a robot with his wife. Actually, his wife built the robot and he helped. And him and the robot have to go off to check out another planet for colonization. Something's going on with Earth. We don't know what's going on with Earth, but something's going on with Earth. And he was really, really, really in love with his wife. And you can feel how much he loved his wife and everything that he says. And he's annoyed with the robot because the robot sounds like his wife, like has her voice, but it's metallic, of course. And that's all he's going to have with him for the next 30 years. We find out that his wife is sick. She had an aneurysm, and he believes that's his fault because he wouldn't make her rest. She stayed up all night working on the robot instead of going to sleep, and he feels like it was her, like it was his fault. And towards the end of the story, we get some good news, right? Don't want to give everything away. But it was a really cute story, and the author was able to write it in a way where I felt something for these characters that I knew very little about because it is a short story. But I felt something about these characters, and I was invested in their love without the story actually being about their love. It was more so that he had to go away. So it was very well written. I gave that 5 out of 5 stars. The next story, okay, Patiently Waiting, by Anna O'Connor. So Patiently Waiting is a story told through the eyes of a puppy as he grows into a young dog. He is brought to a family where he's so excited about it. He meets an elderly or a senior dog named Tico, who doesn't particularly like him in the beginning. But Tico warms up to him, and as you read the story, you're seeing the world through the eyes of Lincoln. Lincoln is the puppy. And unfortunately, Tico is a senior dog, so Tico's not going to last with us forever, and you get to experience grief through the eyes of a puppy. And I thought that was very interesting because I don't have dogs, I have cats, but one of my senior cats passed away. She was, I believe, 5 years older than my other cat. And it's interesting how animals grieve, because I couldn't really tell how Callie Girl was taking the whole situation. But ever since then, she doesn't act like she's grieving, but she always wants to sleep in bed with me. Before they used to sleep together in the cat bed, and now she just wants to sleep with me, which causes issues sometimes, but for the most part it's fine. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I actually teared up a little bit reading this story, which is interesting because it's anthropomorphic, right? It's not an actual person, but the author did a good job of giving the puppy feelings, or I should say relating the feelings of the puppy in a way that the human reader would be able to identify with, not just read, understand, and move on. Because of course anyone can understand something if you write it properly, but not if everyone is going to identify with something. So I was able to identify with Lincoln and how he was feeling. So she did really good with that. That was a 5 out of 5 stars as well. The next story, oh my goodness, this was wow. Okay, so the next one that I liked was The Waiting Game. This is a story of a retired man who falls in love with and starts to stalk a young barista. So they end up meeting. She bumps into him by accident on the street, and he ends up walking into a coffee shop just to get some coffee, you know, nothing big. And she's there, and she's like, oh my god, sir, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you. And he's like, nah, it's cool, I just came for some coffee. And he notices how pretty she is, and how bubbly she is, and how nice she is, and how attentive she is. And so he starts coming there every single day. And I'm sorry, I didn't tell you who wrote The Waiting Game. Let me just pull that up. That was written by Sydney Marion. Sorry. Yes, that was written by Sydney Marion. So he comes there every day, and you're in the mind of the stalker, right? You're not in the woman's mind, you're in the stalker's mind. And you're seeing that he's perceiving little things that this woman is doing. as more than what they mean. Now, as the reader, you can tell because the author clearly writes what the woman is doing. Like, if she shrugs or she just turns her head, like, you can clearly tell that she's not doing anything in particular, but the character, right, the person whose mind you're in sees everything that she does as a reflection of her love for him. And he continually stalks her to try to make, like, every time she says no thank you or I'm cool or stop, he's like, I'm going to make her love me. I can't be not seeing what it is I'm seeing. She has to see it too. She's just not acknowledging it. This was a really good story. I would love to see what happened next. The ending was it was interesting. I would love to see what happened next. This was a 5 out of 5 as well. Benevolent. I thought Benevolence was really good. I did like this story. This was a 5 out of 5 as well. Benevolence was written by Sydney Marion. Yep, so there's 2 5s from Sydney Marion. Sydney Marion is a really good writer. So Benevolence is a story of an elderly woman who's just living her elderly woman life. And she sees like this creature in her backyard. She doesn't really get a good look at the creature, but she just sees the creature. Like, you know, an eye. So, you know, you see like a cat, a dog, a squirrel or something in the bushes. And so she decides that she's going to make like a little shelter for the little creature and leave food out and stuff like that. And she names the little creature Jack. So one day she sees a cat and the cat is about to get attacked by a coyote. So she's like, nah, bruh, not on my watch. And she takes out her cane and she starts wagging it at the coyote, trying to make herself look big. And it works. The coyote runs away. Jack is safe and goes back into his little shelter. Jack, she said, looks like a cat. So later on, next day or day after, something to that effect, she's going back outside like she normally does. And she trips and falls in the snow. And passes out. When she wakes up, she's back in her house. Her arm hurts a bit, but she's back in her house. And she's like, oh my God. How am I back in my house? I live by myself and nobody lives around me, and town is like an hour away and I should be outside dying of hypothermia. And she hears noise in her kitchen. She's like, oh my God. Because remember, she's old, right? So a fall can hurt an old person really bad. It can debilitate an old person. And she's by herself and she hears something in her kitchen. So a man walks out of her kitchen and she's like hyper scared. And he's like, cool, it's all right, cool it, it's okay. You know, I'm a fairy and I never like to have a debt. So I'm here to help you. And thank you for helping me. I love this story because at the end of it, once again, I wanted to know more. So for the other ones that I mentioned, what is it? Let me just get those names again. I'm sorry. It's not that they weren't good. They were awesome, but there's so many. So for Liftoff, Patiently Waiting, for Liftoff and Patiently Waiting, they ended right where they needed to end. And it didn't leave me wanting more. It left me happy with how it ended. Or content with how it ended. I was okay with it. But The Waiting Game and Benevolent, those two left me waiting for more and wanting more. So yeah, those are both 5 out of 5. Let me just see. I believe there's one more that I really liked. 2 more? Okay. The next one is Gratitude. And who's Gratitude written by? Gratitude is written by Brandon Park. So Gratitude is a story of a family who is, I would say, upper middle class. Not even upper, rich. I'm gonna say rich because they got like 4 houses, so rich. And they're going through the recession. Now the parents know what's going on, but the child doesn't know what's going on. And so the father owns a business, he owns a factory, and the factory isn't doing too well. So they have to downsize. They can't live the same life that they lived anymore. And I thought that this was very interesting because when everything hits the fan, you usually think about poor people, right? I would say that I was raised lower middle class. So basically hand to mouth, but still having a hand to bring to your mouth kind of a thing, but really hand to mouth. I can understand losing a job in that position because this is devastating. I never quite understood how it would feel for someone who's rich, right? for someone who has money to go from having money to not having as much money. I never figured that the devastation that could come from having money but not as much as you used to have could be just as devastating as not having money at all. Even though in the grand scheme of things, it's better to have less money as opposed to no money. But the feelings that come along with it are just as devastating as having no money, because it feels like something was ripped away from you. I thought that was very interesting. So that one got a 4 out of 5 because it was interesting. And the last one that we rated, so we read the whole thing, but the last one that we rated was Tales of the Underground. That was written by Mark Fitzgerald. I feel like there's something that I'm missing, but okay, yeah, there was another one after this. There's another one after this. But the next one is Tales of the Underground by Mark Fitzgerald. So this is basically just a story of a child on the subway train in New York with their dad. And I thought it was fun because when I was younger, I would be on the bus with my dad. I'm the youngest, and so, you know, everybody else would be at school, and I would be with mom and dad, sometimes just mom. And it was a light story of a father making perhaps a somewhat uncomfortable situation a fun situation. Like, there was a moment where the main character, sorry once again for being so sweaty, let me get my fan. Woof. There was a moment in the book where the main character saw cockroaches on the train, on the subway. And they were like, oh my god, I don't want to be around this. And the father was like, cockroaches? No, these are cockroaches. And the kid's like, what? What are you talking about, Dad? And he's like, who do you think keeps the microscopic world in order? Cockroaches. Dun dun, they're on the beat. So he was just doing things. I'm sure the father understood how crappy being on the subway can be, but he was just doing different things to make the child feel comfortable and to make them feel like we're having an adventure. Not we can't afford a car, or not there isn't any other better way, but we're having an adventure and this adventure is fun. So my dad used to do the same thing, and yeah, it was cool. I gave that a 4 out of 5. The last story that we did was, I think it's called The B-Side. Well, the last one that we graded for this. They all got a grade, but these are our favorites. Okay, so the last one was, yeah, B-Side. So B-Side is the story of a jazz musician living in New Orleans, kind of hand to mouth once again. More like bucket to mouth, because he sometimes plays music on the street. And he wants to become a full-fledged, fully identified musician, but he keeps not being able to get gigs. He still plays on the streets, but he can't find a gig. So one day he sees a paper saying to audition for this really big band that never has auditions, and the audition is 2 months away. So he, instead of playing on the street, he practices at home this song by Coltrane called Giant Steps. And I'm not one for jazz. I don't like freeform, and I don't like jazz. So when that was mentioned in the book, I googled it and listened to it, and it's a lot of riffing in it. And so it's supposed to be really hard to play, and he plays it for the audition. Sorry, sweaty. He plays it for the audition. He doesn't feel like he gets the audition. He doesn't feel like he nails it. His mom tries to make him feel better about how he feels. And so he goes back out to the street to start playing for, you know, people in the street for a little bit of cash. And the people there are like, hey, we missed you. You're the best part of my workday. You know, so that was his audience. These people were the ones who cared about him the most. But after he finishes playing a set, someone breaks the crowd and he's like, hi, my name is Freddie. Weren't you at the auditions? So it's like, yeah, hopefully he got the part. This was really good. This is another 4 out of 5 too. It's kind of a day in the life of. And so that was really good too. Overall, this anthology written by high schoolers in Connecticut, Joseph A. Foreign High School, was better than the Publisher House book. And what's interesting is I picked up this book at BookCon. My husband and I were just walking around strolling, and this well-dressed young man, a high schooler, said, "Hi, can I talk to you about our book?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he introduced me to this book and another anthology, which hopefully you will be able to get to this month. And he was so well-spoken and so enthusiastic. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Got it, and I loved it. So it goes to show you don't have to have a really big name, or you don't have to pick up a really big name in order to enjoy a really good story. So this has been 2 anthologies. Hopefully we'll be able to bring you 2 more anthologies next week. Also expect a video for POC-a-thon. I believe that's coming. I'm going to do that on Wednesday. That should be released on Wednesday of this week, hopefully. But thank you so much for watching. And if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Bye, Bookends.